I've previously reviewed the Galaxy Book 2, 3 and 4, and those were all very good laptops. And now that Samsung has finally brought the Galaxy Book 5 to most world markets, it's time to review this one. This is the non-Pro 360 or Ultra model. It's just the base Galaxy Book 5. And even though this is the cheapest model, which most people are going to be looking for, I haven't really seen anyone review it yet. So is it still the best laptop for students? Let's find out. And please like and subscribe if you like these type of videos. From the outside, it's pretty obvious that the Galaxy Book 5 is going for a sleek, professional design. Coming in either this dark gray or an alternative white silverish color, it looks pretty nice. It's really going for that minimalist MacBook-like look, with no crazy exhaust vents anywhere either. It is very thin, at just shy of 1.5 centimeters, which looks premium. And weighing in at only 1.5 kilograms, this is a very manageable, lightweight package. Despite that, it has an almost fully aluminum body, so it feels quite sturdy for its price, although it does flex a little on the keyboard. It also has a very cheap feeling plastic bezel, but I guess you gotta keep the price down somehow. Overall, this is a sturdy, thin and light laptop. That does mean, however, that it doesn't have the highest specs possible. With a 2nd gen Intel Ultra 9 and no dedicated GPU, this is strictly a work laptop, not a gaming beast. And the lack of vents on the bottom probably gives it away, but that Ultra 5 is not gonna use a whole lot of power. But it's not a slow chip by any means. And believe it or not, it can actually play some games on the side. You might be surprised. The Book 5 has an excellent port selection, having basically every port you can think of, from Ethernet to microSD. I do wish it had a USB-C port on both sides of the laptop though, because with this current configuration, you can only charge it from one side. Speaking of which, here's its charger. Yes, this is literally just a 45-watt phone charger, straight up taken from the Samsung Galaxy lineup. And that is really cool in my opinion. I mean, you could use any phone charger to charge this thing. It comes with a 1.8 meter long cable, which is USB-C to USB-C, so you could always just get a longer cable if you'd want to. Or even a completely different brick. I mean, you've got quite the freedom. Alright, let's move on to its keyboard. It does have a white backlight with 3 brightness settings, which is plenty for darker rooms. And it even has a numpad, which many people will appreciate. It also has a fingerprint scanner combined with its power button, which enables Windows Hello if you'd like to use it. The keys themselves feel pretty satisfying. They are very clicky. However, they don't have much key travel at all, so they feel a bit shallow and might make you miss some inputs accidentally. They're very MacBook-like. Moving down, we have its trackpad. It's not massive, but definitely bigger than average. I'm not sure if it's made of glass or plastic, but it does feel sturdy. And as for the clicks themselves, it does feel very nice. You do need a bit of force to press it down though. Moving up, we have its display. And the best words I could use to describe this Full HD IPS panel is good enough. It does have nice and vibrant colors and quite a bit of contrast for an IPS panel, but the fact that it only goes up to 300 nits of brightness is really disappointing in 2026. It does have a matte display coating, so reflections aren't as bad as they could be, but outside use isn't gonna be a great experience on a sunny day. It does have some backlight bleeding as well, but it doesn't look that bad at all. And while it's only a Full HD display, this really isn't an issue at 15 inches. It looks quite good. I do wish it was a 16:10 aspect ratio though. Some people actually like the older 16:9 screens, but the new standard really does give you a lot more verticality. Now this display also caps out at 60 Hz, so it's not really the smoothest for gaming, but should be good enough for regular use, I guess. The display hinge does go back a full 180 degrees, which is pretty cool, but man is it ever floppy. I mean, you can't open this thing up with one hand at all. I'm sure the tightness of the hinge varies per unit, but it really takes away from the quality of a device. It also wobbles quite a bit, but only if you directly tap the screen or if you're a very heavy typer. But what about its speakers? Windows laptops have started catching up to MacBooks when it comes to speaker quality, but in these lower price ranges, they are still struggling. So how does the Book 5 sound? Well, it doesn't sound bad. It only has 2 downfiring speakers on its bottom, so it doesn't get super loud. But if you play around a bit with the Dolby Atmos settings, it does give you some quite good audio quality. However, it's definitely lacking in bass and volume, and doesn't even come close to a MacBook or Zephyrus. But for 99% of people, these are gonna sound pretty great. The webcam actually looks really good. It's not particularly high res or anything, and it is a bit noisy, but it's got great processing. The microphone is also pretty decent, but not studio level quality. But let's see some real performance numbers. The Galaxy Book 5 is obviously not meant to be a gaming laptop or a massive workstation, but it is nice to know how fast it can go. Well, in Cinebench R23, this Ultra 5 got a very respectable single-core score, but its multi-core score is pretty bad compared to your average gaming laptop, even the thinner ones. However, the good thing is that it performs almost exactly the same on battery as it does connected to a charger, which is actually pretty rare for a Windows laptop. And in 3D Mark TimeSpy, yeah, we see that it's obviously not very fast graphically. This Intel iGPU falls somewhere between a desktop 1050 and a 1050 Ti. But that's actually faster than I expected. Can this thing do some graphically intensive workloads? Well, let's try to run something heavier on it, like Adobe Premiere Pro. Can you do some editing on the Galaxy Book 5? Well, I threw a 4K 60 video in there and added some simple effects, and yeah, it ran perfectly well. Scrubbing along the timeline did have some dropped frames, but I could easily edit a full video on this. And when we unplug it, performance doesn't really change. It's still more than fine to edit on, even on the go. Meaning you definitely can run some heavier stuff on this laptop. So let's test this thing's limits. Can it actually handle some real games? Well, let's start with a relatively older, but still beautiful title, Battlefield 1. At its native resolution of 1080p with the settings on Ultra, it wasn't really a fun experience. At around 20 to 30 FPS, it's basically unplayable. But turning down the resolution to 720p and on low graphical settings, which still looks very good, it actually ran very nicely. It hovered around 80 FPS and was perfectly playable. So let's keep those graphical settings as a standard, 720p on low. Let's move on to a more CPU-intensive game, Counter-Strike 2. And yeah, it's basically unplayable. It's got constant stuttering and the overall FPS is just not great. CSGO might have been a CPU-intensive game, but CS2 got a lot more graphically intensive. But you know what really helps with a lack of graphical power? Upscaling. And Intel actually has their own XeSS upscaler. So let's try to play a new game which has that feature, Battlefield 6. And yeah, it still runs horribly. Battlefield 6 gets very laggy and rubber bandy on lower end hardware, and the game is basically unplayable. Okay, so the newest games are definitely not an option. However, I still want to see this thing get pegged by Cyberpunk 2077. At 720p with the lowest settings and XeSS, and with Intel frame generation on, it did run kind of stable, around 30 FPS, but it straight up looks like it's being run on a Nintendo Switch 2. It's a little bit blurry. I actually think the Nintendo Switch 2 runs this game better than this laptop. Okay, let's play a game that's a bit more suited for this thing. In Minecraft, it obviously ran very great. I think you could even run some very light shaders on it. And in any older game or less intensive newer game, it'll probably perform pretty well. But the Galaxy Book 5 performs great in basic use. It even handled video editing way better than I expected. And it even ran some games. Just don't try to run anything too graphically intensive on it. But none of that matters if it runs way too hot, right? So how are this thing's temperatures? Well, in the heaviest workload I could run, the CPU didn't even reach 80 degrees Celsius, which is very impressive for such a thin body. And even though the iGPU is technically a part of the CPU, I guess that also stayed nice and cool. This laptop never really uses more than 40 watts. And 40 watts of heat is not that hard to get rid of. As for the outside of the laptop, in very long, intensive sessions, the keyboard does get a little bit warmer than normal, but not hot at all. And the rest of the laptop, like the keyboard deck, stays perfectly cool. But how loud can these fans get? Yeah, not loud at all. I'm pretty sure a MacBook Pro gets louder than this. And outside of heavy tasks, it's basically always silent. By the way, the quiet profile is actually quieter than the silent profile. Very logical, Samsung. But how long can this thing last? A big part of a thin and light laptop is how long its battery life is. So how does it do? Well, I tested its battery in two different scenarios, under light use and during gaming. In the light use scenario, I played a YouTube video until its battery died, with its display at 80% brightness and the keyboard backlight off. And it lasted over 8 hours. Other laptops have lasted longer, especially with those newer Intel and AMD chips, but this certainly isn't a bad number. With actual real-world use, this number is likely gonna get lower, but since this thing just takes any phone charger, I don't think that's gonna be a huge issue. Now in the gaming test, I played Battlefield 1 until its battery died, with the same settings as before. And like basically any other laptop, it barely lasted longer than an hour. Get a gaming handheld if you want to play games on the go. Now this laptop is very thin, so does it have any space left for modular components? Well, unfortunately, not really. It has fully soldered memory, so RAM upgrades are very much impossible. It also has its Wi-Fi card soldered to the motherboard, which is unfortunate. But at least it does have two M.2 SSD slots, so you don't have to replace the current drive to get more storage. I guess the microSD card slot is technically a storage upgrade as well, but why would you do that? But now comes the biggest advantage of the Galaxy Book 5, its pricing. This laptop can frequently be found for around $700 to $800 with 16 GB of RAM. And that's only a little bit more expensive than the cheapest of the cheapest laptops with a decent processor. And when we look back at the Galaxy Book 2, 3 and 4, it's gonna get even cheaper. The Galaxy Book laptops get a lot of price cuts from local retail stores. So if you're a little patient and look around a bit, you can get it for dirt cheap. I'll try to put some links in the description down below for if you're interested in any of these models. Alright, it's time for a conclusion. Is the Samsung Galaxy Book 5 worth it? I would say yes, absolutely. This little thin and light package packs quite a punch. It's not a gaming beast, but it handles basically everything else really well. It's quite fast for what it is. It's got decent battery life, a decent keyboard with a numpad, a decent display, and actually above average performance. It's not a MacBook in terms of build quality, but it is built quite sturdily with its metal body parts. Look, it's not gonna win any prizes on its own. I mean, there's plenty of laptops that do all of this much better. Hell, you can get a Galaxy Book Ultra if you want your laptop to be like a MacBook. But for only $700 to $800, it absolutely does all these things better than the competition. So if you're looking for an affordable, reliable laptop that runs basically any program, get the Galaxy Book 5. Now let me give a huge shout out to my YouTube members. Soundwife, Thomas, Inky, Mr. Vassidu, Dropzone1, Martijn Snijkers, Flimsy, Aki, Disco Volante, Mr. Nuke, Sebastian, Christian Sands, Real Elf, Eric the Red, Wesley Rhodes, Michael, Ghost Data, Anugedar, Abdullah and Lewis. If you become a YouTube member, you get early access to content of mine, a shout out at the end of every video, and you'll also be supporting me as a creator to make these videos. And of course, you'll also be part of the Cool Guys Club, so you can use cool emojis like these in the comment section. So join the club if you're interested. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye bye.